a biblical perspective on life, culture and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
We always like to check in with Mandy Worby, who's across a whole lot of detail when it comes to developments around Israel and the Middle East, and you'd have to be living under a rock to know that there are not huge developments that have been going on in the Middle East.
Yeah.
It may even be that the war between Israel and Iran is over. But let's start, Mandy, with the bombings of Iran's nuclear sites. Let us in on your insights around this.
Well, we talked very briefly about, last week about, what the Iranian regime, was all about. And then next thing you know, in the middle of Final Steps Visionathon, and oh my goodness, Israel has done a preemptive strike on Iran. And we talked about the foundations of that. But Israel, and again, had this tiny little window of opportunity to deal with this nuclear threat because they were literally within days of being able to build a bomb. And the reason for the preemptive strike was that Iran has been waging a war with Israel for decades through the terror armies of Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis, Islamic Jihad and others. And Israel, in turn, has been warning for decades that they won't tolerate a nuclear threat on their doorstep. Now, what Israel doesn't have in her arsenal is the big B-2 bombers that drop the bunker busters. Okay, that America has those. Only America has those. They flew 37 hours straight. They have a microwave in those in those bombers. They have a microwave. There's a long time to 37 hours without eating. Anyway, the nuclear sites were so deep underground. While Israel could destroy the surface level infrastructure, they couldn't get to the really dangerous bits down underneath. Now, just for context, every time the Iranian parliament gathers, every time they celebrate a national holiday or they have state-sanctioned marches, they chant, "Death to Israel, death to America." This is foundational of the Iranian regime's plans. Now, I've got to qualify, I'm not talking about the majority of the Iranian people, I'm talking about the Islamic regime of Iran. And it's why it was established, to build terrorist armies to surround Israel, establish terror cells around the US and the world. So America dropping the bunker busters and Tomahawk missiles onto Iran's nuclear sites didn't just prevent a nuclear attack on Israel, but on US and other Western nations.
We often talk about, as Christians, what's coming, biblical prophecy, how that might relate to events that are happening in our day. And there's been a lot of people thinking, wow, is this what we might be reading about in biblical prophecy? There's two sides to this too, isn't there?
Yeah, there are. Remember, Muhammad, he took his scriptures, he took a bit of Christianity, he took some of the Jewish scriptures, and then he combined that with some of the religious beliefs of the Arab world, and then added a lot of his own. So he's got he established an eschatology or an end times doctrine, if you will, for Islam. And in the radical Shia Islam, they believe that the 12th Imam is their Messiah, their Mahdi is what they call him. But he is going to return to the earth to establish Islamic rule over the whole world, but only when there's chaos. Now, Israel has to be destroyed, according to this Islamic eschatology, as well as the West. So since America is the bastion of the free world, it's got to be taken out, and then, of course, the rest of the free world is going to follow. Now, in Islam, Jesus, they call him Isa, he is only a prophet of Allah, and he is going to, in their eschatology, come with their Mahdi, and he is going to convert all the Christians to Islam, or he'll kill them. Now, the regime believes that they can bring the Mahdi back sooner if they create chaos all over the world and wipe out Israel and America. Now, you can't negotiate or compromise with this ideology because they believe it is the command of their deity. And the world, and of course President Trump, need to educate themselves on what drives this regime in order to understand. These guys are not businessmen looking to make a deal and make a profit. They want to obey the commands of their God. You can't negotiate with them. So after the destruction of the nuclear sites, the Ayatollah said that the enriched uranium, something like this 400 kilos of it, was removed and it's stored elsewhere. Now, the experts are saying, no, you can't just stick it in the boot of your mini miner and go hide it somewhere. So they're saying, no, they did not have a chance to move it. But that suggestion is now out. It's got oxygen, so where is it? Because the concern is that they could manufacture dirty bombs And that's not just concerning for Israel, but the whole world.
Okay, just quickly on that. Dirty bombs would be the use of nuclear material, but it might not be the sort of atom bomb type thing.
Precisely,
and,
not dropped in a big warhead, but taken into a city in a suitcase or something and let go. That sort of thing.
There could be a threat that exists if they were able to extract some of that nuclear material out of those bunkers.
Precisely. Now, the International Atomic Energy Agency chief Rafael Grossi, he said that the 400 kilos of enriched uranium to 60%, which I might add is much, much higher than necessary to make nuclear bombs, it has to be accounted for. So the question is, was it destroyed at Fordow, or are the Ayatollahs hiding it elsewhere? But they have to know. So it's an ongoing issue that the whole world is concerned about.
All right, let's talk ceasefire between Israel and Iran. What have you been monitoring along here?
Okay, well, this kind of came out of the blue, actually. It happened really suddenly. Nobody was expecting it, but all of a sudden President Trump announces that the 12-day war, as he's called it, is over, and both Israel and Iran have agreed to the ceasefire. Iran then qualified it and said, no. They forced, or their actual word was imposed, a ceasefire on Israel, which is ludicrous. And Israel said that they'd completed what they set out to achieve and that they would agree to a ceasefire as long as Iran stopped attacking them. Now, right up to the last minute, Israel was taking out Iranian military sites, government sites, munitions sites. Iran was then blanket bombing Israeli cities, communities. They murdered 5, injured many others. Children's daycares and things were taken out. I spent most of yesterday, Neil, praying as the alerts just literally rained in on my phone all day. They didn't stop. It was outrageous. It was horrible.
Interesting, isn't it? Donald Trump's, I guess you could say, it was a little triumphal when he's making these sorts of announcements. But I couldn't help but notice that he was making reference to God.
He did. In fact, he shocked the world with that. Most of his, I watched that live. I was about to go out shopping and then I quickly ran back because Ian said, Trump's doing a live speech. I raced straight back in, I got on my computer and watched it. I just sat there, it was amazing. I mean, he's a really flawed and very unpolished person. I mean, he can be very charming. He's really, really funny very often. But you wouldn't call him a statesman, all right? But at the same time, he doesn't say things that he doesn't mean. It often gets him into trouble, draws criticism, but people want authenticity these days, I think. And I also know that if you look back in history, God has a habit of using very flawed people. And he used words that left a lot of people reeling. He gave a 4-minute speech, and at the end of it, this is what he said, quote, I want to just thank everybody, in particular, God. I want to just say, we love you, God. We love our great military, protect them. That's like a prayer. God bless the Middle East. God bless Israel and God bless America. Now, I don't know of another president who said anything like that before, but Jeremy Gimple, he is an Israeli Jew. You've had a conversation with him on 2020 before, and he kind of responded with awe. He said, on the world stage, the most powerful man on earth, which is the reality of what he is, acknowledged the God of the Bible. He blessed Israel, the people of God and the Bible. And he then blessed the Middle East, which encompasses many, many nations, all of whom are Muslim. And then he blessed America. In many ways, America has fallen away from its Christian heritage and foundings. I mean, that's remarkable.
Hey, there's a lot of competing thoughts because there's propaganda arms working left, right and centre around the ceasefire and the potential for the end of the war here. I know a lot of people are debating, and it depends on who you're listening to and what channel you're watching, perhaps, about who broke the ceasefire. Let's get a Mandy Worby view.
Right, Israel did not break the ceasefire, regardless of what's being said everywhere. I watched a video this morning. It was an interview between Nigel Farage. He is the head of the Reform Party in the UK. And he had a conversation with the former Director General of Israeli Ministry of Strategic Affairs, Brigadier General Cooper Wassa. That was a mouthful. And he asked him, he said, you broke the ceasefire? And he said, no. He said, we didn't break the ceasefire. We responded to a break of the ceasefire by the Iranians after the ceasefire about 2 hours and a half after. The Iranians launched towards Israel, towards northern Israel, and there was a need to make it clear to the Iranians that this is unacceptable, and the way to send this message was to hit back. So Israel didn't break the ceasefire, the Iranians did. Neil, this morning, Israel is still intercepting drones from Iran, just this morning, okay? Iran is breaking the ceasefire, but President Trump kind of went off his dial, dropped the F-bomb, and everybody went, what the? I mean,
right.
just the other day he's blessing Israel, this day he's dropping the F-bomb at them. But let me just point something out. Israel has been bombarded unceasingly for the past 20 months on all its borders and in the heart of its towns and cities. 20 months of multiplied tens of thousands of rockets, drones, missiles and cluster bombs in a war they didn't want or start. So in my humble opinion, but who am I? I'm nobody. Mr. Trump, President Trump, he needs his aides and advisors to do some research on the ideology that is driving the Islamic regime. Look, just this morning, social media posts are popping up from Iran and they're saying this, quote, "No end to the battle until Zionists are destroyed." Now, that was posted this morning. It's not even 24 hours since the ceasefire, all right? The Iranian regime is hell-bent on wiping out Israel, all right? They've also said that, they're going to be targeting US cities. They've got sleeper cells around the world. But why would they have a sleeper cell established around the world, Neil? They've been there for years and years and years, long before this conflict. What were the sleeper cells for? Certainly not to sit around and sing Kumbaya around the flagpole. So you've got to ask a question. This has been a long-standing, pre-planned thing, and the bunker busters are just the excuse that the Iranian regime is looking for to try to take the war to America.
We might all be worried about those sleeper cells because it has the potential to take conflict beyond just Iran versus Israel.
Absolutely, they'll be
has
everywhere.
The potential to take it really to the whole world.
Yeah, even in Australia.
What other issues have you been looking at?
All right, well, let me try to get through this as quickly as I can because there is so much, if I'm honest. There is the Gaza war is continuing, all right? Just this morning I watched a video of a very, very long terror tunnel being blown up. The food and aid is still being distributed. There is one particular agency which is being headed up by an American group, and they're making sure that the aid gets to the Gazans directly. There are other aid groups that are headed by UN agencies, UN-sanctioned agencies. They're being hijacked by Hamas, okay? They're not stopping that from happening. I don't know how to, I can't even explain that. 3 Israeli hostages who were murdered on October 7 had their bodies dragged to Gaza. The IDF found them, returned them to their families for burial. There are still 50 remaining hostages in Gaza, 20 believed to be alive. So that war still goes on, and the IDF's now have a main focus back on Gaza. They want to wipe out Hamas and get their people back. So that's kind of there. But there is actually a bit of a out-of-the-box report that I saw this morning. Okay.
And I guess there's been lots of expectation, even new aspirations that are coming from the surrounding nations, because we know that not everybody's been happy with Iran all along, even other Muslim nations that might be on the Sunni side of things, not the Shia side of things. Yeah. And so what are you noticing about some change?
What's kind of just freaked me out a little bit this morning is that you know about the Abraham Accords. Yeah. Bahrain, United Arab Emirates, they're part of the Abraham Accords. They have a warm peace agreement now with Israel. The Saudi Arabians were getting ready to have normalisation with Israel, and then Hamas did October 7, thinking that would put, kibosh to that. That's still on the cards now, a normalisation with Saudis, because they're thrilled that Iran doesn't have nuclear capabilities now. But I read a report this morning. This came from Amir Safati, who got it from the Israel Hayam media outlet in Israel, saying that the Israeli National Security Advisor Hanegbi said this, and I quote, "There is a daily dialogue at all levels between Israel and the regime in Syria. I am leading it with government representatives there. Syria and Lebanon are candidates for the Abraham Accords." Now, that's phenomenal because Iran had control of Syria and Lebanon. They embraced the Shia Islam. Syria's just been taken over by another terrorist, and he's saying, yeah, we think we'd kind of like to, be friends, but Lebanon doesn't want Hezbollah anymore. This is just mind-blowing to me, and it's something we really need to pray and focus on.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.